Evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. Yetz Hashem, Hanukkah is approaching very rapidly. Very exciting time. And I want to speak tonight about a very well-known minhag, well-known custom amongst the Jewish people, the minhag of the Dreidel, the sevivon, the spinning top. It's axiomatic that nothing in Judaism is by chance, and everything that we do contains deep and hidden meanings. What is the deep and the hidden meaning of the Dreidel? The Dreidel has four sides, and carved on it are four letters, Hebrew letters, Nun, Gimel, Hey, and Shin. Latterly in Eretz Yisrael, they changed the minhag. It stands for Nes Gadol Haya Sham. Since Jewish people have been able to establish a state here, it has been changed on a lot of dreidels to Nes Gadol Haya Po, here. But the original minhag, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, is with the Shin. What is the deep understanding behind the dreidel? The dreidel, a children's game, played in the firelight with the menorah glowing silently in the corner of the room. So to understand the significance of the dreidel, we need to go back and look at something we spoke about in previous weeks, the four exiles. And before we get to the four exiles, which are Babylon, Persia, and Media, Greece, and Rome, we need to go even further back to the descent of the Jewish people into Mitzrayim. And if you look at the first posuk that I mentioned to you before, this is on 260 in the art scroll, Mem Vov Chaf Ches. The posuk says, "V'es Yehuda shalach lefono El Yosef lahoros lefonav Goshna v'yavo arza Goshen." And we're talking about Yaakov Avinu sent Yehuda, Judah. He sent him lefonov in front of him meaning before he went down into Egypt, to Joseph, who was already there, if you remember, and had now become the second most powerful person in the land. Excuse me, lahoros, to teach. Lefonov in front of him, Goshna to Goshen. We're going to examine this posuk in some detail, so it's worth having it open. V'yavo arza Goshen, and they arrived in the region of Goshen, the land of Goshen. Now there's a few things that I want to start asking here, and basically what I'm going to be saying is based on the Bnei Yisoscha, and the Bnei Yisoscha bases this on the Maharal. So the first question we want to ask is, why specifically did Yaakov send Yehuda to Yosef? Second question, there's an anomaly in the way this posuk is set up. It says, "Ve'es Yehuda shalach lefonov El Yosef lahoros, to teach, lefonov in front of him, Goshna." Goshna means to Goshen. Why doesn't it say le Goshen? It's true, Goshna, the hey at the end of a place name, can be used to indicate what we would normally use as a lamed, to Goshen. You can also say Goshna, but Goshna is not the typical way of saying it, and therefore that has to kind of wave a flag and say, why did the Torah write it as Goshna as opposed to Le Goshen? So two questions are, why Yehuda, and why is it spelled Goshna? Why is it Goshna and not Le Goshen? Okay, so it's axiomatic that the four exiles we spoke about in previous weeks, their fount, their source is Golus Mitzrayim. There's a concept of Maisa Ovos Siman Labonim. The actions of the fathers are an indication, are a siman, a sign to the children. So to speak, the Torah is a blueprint on many levels. And on one level, what the actions of the fathers do is an indication, gets played out through all of world history subsequently. So Mitzrayim, Egypt, is the fount, the source of all the four exiles which are going to take place. As we said, the four historical exiles which are hinted to, and we said this last year in the Medrash, right at the beginning of the Torah. He was so and the land was so empty and formless, and darkness on the face of the deep. So stands for Babylon. Vo stands for Porosumodai. The Mishnah, the Medrash brings psukim to back this up. Choshech, the darkness. Shehem hechishu es eineim shel Yisrael b'gezerah sehem. The Greeks darkened our eyes with their gezerahs against the Torah, principally. That's the festival of Hanukkah. And the last of those exiles is the exile of Rome. And Rome, if you remember, we also mentioned there's another Medrash which describes the dream of Yaakov Avinu with the ladder, Sulam Mutzav Arza, placed, stuck into the ground, Barosha Magim L'Shamayim, and its head reaches to the heavens. And on that there were Malachei Elokim, going up and down on it, Yodim Va'olim Sham. So that Medrash says that actually those Malachim were the protecting powers of these four great exiles. In other words, Yaakov Avinu, on one level, his dream was a dream of the exiles. He saw the exiles. He saw that initially the exile, the Malach, I don't like to say the word angel, the Malach of Bavel would go up 70 rungs and come down again. Then Porosumodai, 52 years, the Jewish people were in exile in Persia, come down again. Greece, 180 years the Greeks ruled over Eretz Yisrael. We discussed last week how the exile of Greece was really an internal exile, an exile of the soul, because we never left Eretz Yisrael. And this last Malach, the Malach of Rome, went up and up and up and up and up, and he didn't seem to be coming down. And Yaakov Avinu got very frightened, says the Medrash, and the Kodesh Baruch Hu said to him, Al tira Avdi Yaakov, don't fear my servant Yaakov. And then Kodesh Baruch Hu, so to speak, uses the words of Avadia, the prophet, in the Haftorah that we read this week, that says, even if he will rise up like an angel, like a nesher, like an eagle, and make his nest amongst the nest amongst the stars, I will cast him down even from them. Now, it's not by coincidence that the comparison to the eagle is because the eagle was the symbol of the Romans. So that last exile seems to go on and on and on and on, and historically we should understand we are in this exile to this day. That is the exile that we're in now. Okay, so there are the four exiles and the prototype, the archetype of all these exiles, where these exiles derive their power is from Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim was the archetypal exile. So the four exiles stand in opposition to the four letters of Hashem's name, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. That's why they have to be four. Now we also spoke a little bit about the idea of four. Four is a concept of pirud, of separation. Directionality always suggests a moving away from the central point of Achdus. And things always move conceptually when they separate into the four compass points of four compass points of the world. Four compass points. These 4 points represent the four directions, the four exiles. They all symbolize this idea of moving away from Hashem. And there's a hint to these four exiles right in the beginning of the prototypical exile, the exile of Rome. And if we turn now to, keep your hands here, but go to Shmos Beis Chaf Gimel, page 300 in the Art Scroll. And the pasuk over there says, Vayhi Bayomim Harabim. At this point, we're talking about the king of Egypt died. It was, after many days, it happened the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel groaned because of the work. So right back there at the beginning of the enslavement of the Jewish people, the pasuk says, "Vayhi by yomim harabim." Now, if you look at this word harabim, this actually is a clue to the 4 exiles, because the rabim stands for Rome, Rabim, Beis is Babel, Yud is Yovan, and the Mem is Modai, Rabim. Vayi bayomim harabim. So right back here, there's this hint to the event of the exiles which are going to come out of Rome. The Gur Aryeh, the Maharal, writes that these 4 exiles represent actually 4 powers of the human being. And they also represent 4 levels of creation. The 4 levels of creation are domim, which means mineral life, tzemach, which is the level of plant life, each one above the other. And then there's chai, which is animal life, and medaber, which is man. Man is a speaker. Conceptually in Jewish thought, what separates man from the animals is his ability to speak. Those are the 4 levels, and these 4 exiles stand against the 4 powers of which are summed up together in a person, which are the koach hagufani, there's a physical power, there's a koach nafshi'i, nefesh basically means the spirit, that the life force of a person, or of an animal for that matter. Sichli, seichel, and there's this koach elyon, an upper power, which binds all of these powers together, which is called we'll come back to that. And so basically the level of nafshi is the level of somayach, of the plant life. Sichli is the chiyuni, the life force in a person, which contains together the nefesh, which speaks, the ability to speak, and the kingdom of Babylon stands against the level of nafshi, of nefesh. Why? Because the Babylonians were the ones who the first to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. There's a level of connection that Kadosh Baruch Hu has to the Jewish people, which comes through the Beis HaMikdash. That's where the korbanos were brought. Korban comes from the Hebrew word karov, which means close. The whole purpose of the korbanot, of the Beis HaMikdash, was to achieve a closeness between Hashem and the Jewish people. This was destroyed by the Babylonians. This is the level of nefesh. The level of nefesh, because it says in Vayikra, when talking about the korbanot, nefesh kisechata, a soul when he will sin. That's the level, the low level, so to speak, of the basic life force. So that's what the Babylonians did. The Babylonians attacked the life force, the level of nefesh. The Parasumadai, the next exile, that was an attack on the goof, the physical body, not the life force per se, but the body. True, they both go together, but they're different. There's the body, and there is the nefesh. Hadam hu nefesh, if one would like to understand that. The dam, the life force, what keeps a person alive. Okay, so the Malchus Babel destroyed that connection. And they destroyed the Beis HaMikdash and the Korbanos, as we said, Korbanos to be makriv, to be close. Then came along the Modai, Poras, Persia, the story of Esther, and they stood in opposed to the power of the Gufani, as it was, as we saw in the story of Esther, that the Persians were not interested in in anything else except destroying the Jewish people physically. Men, women, children, atov, as it says, physical destruction. The Greeks, on the other hand, so that's the koach hagufani. So we have nefesh, we have Guf. We have two attacks now. One was Babylon, one was Poros Madai. The third level is the level of Yovan. And if you remember, Greek attack on Judaism was an attempt to replace the wisdom of the Torah, the elevated wisdom of the Torah, with something called Greek philosophy or seichel. So the attack on the Jewish people wasn't a physical attack. In fact, they would have been quite happy for us to carry on living. But what bothered them and what they tried to destroy was the Torah, the seichel of the Jewish people. And then there's the fourth exile. And this fourth exile is really a summation of everything that came before. And as it's often said, the total is always greater than the sum of its parts. By bringing all of these three other things together, it really combines together, just like a human being achieves a certain kind of, is different from just the fact that he is a nefesh, a guf, and a seichel. There's something which raises him to be the level of a medaber, and it could be, I was thinking, that superior power is the fact that unlike a plant or an animal or a stone for sure, the human being is able to recognize his own existence. So that, given that he has these other three powers, but he also has this sort of, how do you say, this more elevated power. And the Romans basically stand against that. Why? The Romans, if you think about it, represent the attacks of all those three earlier empires. They started off by destroying the second base of Mikdash, so that was Keneged Bovel. They did the same thing as Babylon. And then there was an attack on the Guf of the Jewish people, which was the Persian attack. And we read about the terrible massacres in the tractate of Gittin, Maseches Gittin on Tisha B'Av, where, for example, in Beitar, there's a slaughter of hundreds and thousands of Jews there, and they fertilized the fields for 7 years with Jewish blood. And there was eventually a miracle by which all the bodies were brought to Kever Yisrael, were able to be buried. And to this day, we commemorate that with the fourth blessing in Birkas Hamazon. It was instituted by Chazal. The first three blessings are D'Oraisa, and the fourth one was put in because to commemorate that. So the Romans also attacked the Jewish people from the point of view of the Guf. And then there was this other attack, the attack, so to speak, of the Seichel, the Greek, which is the Greek part of Rome. In point of fact, Rome is considered to be like a bit of a thief. There's a posuk, which I've forgotten now, it's gone out of my head, which describes Rome as being extremely bizui, extremely lowly, because it really has nothing of its own. It plundered the world for its culture. The culture basically is Greek culture. The Romans came up with nothing new. So really the culture of Greece was just, the Romans put a postage stamp on that and exported it to the whole of the rest of the world. And we're really living under that idea today. The ideas of beauty, the ideas of the outside of things being so important, which is so much part of our popular culture today. The way that the secular world prizes beauty above everything is very similar to the idea of the Greeks. And as we said, the attack against the Jewish people in the time of the Hellenists were much more of a thought. They were Jews. The Hellenists were Jews who adopted, espoused Greek values, went so far as to reverse the physical signs of circumcision in order to allow them to compete in the athletic races of the Greeks. I mean, the whole idea, if you think about it, of the Olympics is a Greek idea. Olympus is a mountain in Greece. And the whole idea of the healthy body, the healthy man in the mind in the healthy body, the strong, the beautiful, the proportionate, the art of Greece. All of these ideas are very much with us today. I mean, what is Hollywood if not another, just the latest reincarnation of basically a Greek idea, a celebration of the surface. In Jewish thought, as we spoke about, beauty can never be skin deep, because the whole idea of beauty in Jewish thought is that which reveals panim, the inside. The word in Hebrew for a face is panim. The face is the place where you see the inside of a person. The word in Hebrew for beautiful, shapir, we have the girl's name, Shifra, is connected to a posuk in Eov where it says that Hashem blows aside, the word shapir is used the same verb, to blow aside the clouds to reveal the blue beyond. The idea of Jewish beauty is that which reveals panim. So the idea of beauty being skin deep, or the idea of art for art's sake is totally nonsensical to the Jewish mind. Beauty can only reveal, it can only be, as we spoke about I think last week a little bit. Anyway, so we have Rome. Rome is the summation of all of those three exiles, and it added its own, by putting them all together, so to speak. It was an attack on the very essence of man, which, of course, man is a combination of those three elements. And that's why their attack. And their attack goes on to this day. And we're in that fourth exile now. So Rome, we might say, represents Hakol. Hakol, everything. It combines nefesh, it combines guf, it combines seichel. If you go back now, we ask the question, Ves Yehuda Shalach Lefonov El Yosef Lahoros Lefonov Goshna. Remember what's happening over here, as we said. We have these four exiles, and Yehuda is being sent. This is the prototypical way, so to speak, that the Jewish people will be able to survive in Golus. And where did Hashem send them to? Where did Yaakov send him to? He sent him to Goshna. Look at the letters of Goshna. Gimel, Shin, Nun, Hey. Gimel, Guf, that's Paras Madai. Shin, Seichel, that's Greece. Nun, Nefesh, that's Babylon. Hakol, that's Rome. Right there, before the descent into the prototypical exile of the Jewish people, Mitzrayim, Yaakov sends Yehuda down into Goshna, into the four exiles. This is the Maisa of a similar bonim of the entire four exiles. And why Yehuda? The word Yehuda, the name Yehuda, contains Hashem's names, Yud Kei Vav Kei, and the letter Daled. The way, so to speak, Yehuda has the power within him to be able to take that fourness, and to focus it, so to speak, on Hashem. Now, we spoke in previous times about, there's the Gemara that says, Ki b'ka Hashem tzor Elokim. That Hashem created Olam Haba, the world to come, with the Yud, and He created this world with a Daled. With a Hey, with a Hey. If you think about it, a Hey consists of a Daled and an upside down Yud. So the correct way that this world is supposed to be is when the Daled is misbatel, focuses on the Yud. That makes it into the Hey. When the world is not, that is the correct way, that's the way the world was supposed to be. But when the Daled, so to speak, does not focus itself on the Yud, but perceives itself as being separate, you have the Daled, the four exiles. And if you think the letter Daled itself is a pictogram of this idea of the world of Pirud, because separation conceptually is always going this direction, and of course if you follow those lines out, you'll have the four compass points. A single point, the single point of creation, which comes down into this world and spreads out, is the Daled. And it's interesting because if you think of the Tower of Babylon, the Migdal Bovel, that their idea was to build an ear of a Migdal. An ear means a town, a Migdal means a tower. Ear of a Migdal. Ear, a city spreads out this way, and a tower goes up this way. And if you think about it, that is the sign of this particular philosophy, to this day. That is, an ear goes this way and a tower goes this way. Ear v'migdal. You understand what I'm saying? That is their philosophy. That is the philosophy of Christianity. They can take a God and make him into a man. They took the Yud out of this world and they made it Daled. Now, interestingly enough, somebody once pointed out, if you take a Daled, anyone's got a pen? Okay. So if you take that Daled and you Daled, like how would we do it? If you take that Daled and you make 4 Daleds, right, that's a Daled, right? Yeah. Now if we would make 4 Daleds, which I guess you would say Daled to the maximum, I'm doing this wrong, you would have, if you put 4 Daleds together, you end up with this. Which basically is Esav. As we said, the Esav, Amalek, was the Tamsis, was the essence of Esav, of the hatred of the Jewish people. So the Tamsis of the Amalek reveals himself in every generation by his implacable, illogical hatred for the Jewish people. When you see people, the Jewish people are vilified as being the filthy rich, the filthy poor, the bastions of industry, the capitalists, the communists, the ruthless cosmopolitans. There's no crime that the Jew is not accused of. And if you think about it, it's totally illogical because we can't be all of these things. And the answer is that really what all of these ideas share together is an implacable, irrational hatred. And this concept of this irrational hatred really, and this is really I wanted to get to, the Rome, which is the exile we're in, and Rome is of course one of the last of the kings, Magdiel, who Romi, says at this end of this week's Parsha, that he is the last, he is Rome. Rome comes from Esav, and Amalek is the Tamsis, is the distillation of all of the hatred that Esav has. This is something that we see in our world to this day. And of course, this is Rome. And as we said, Rome is this ability to unify in a negative way those 3 destructive forces against the nefesh, against the seichel, and against the guf, and against this hakol, this unifying power, which turns man, the 4th level, into the medaber, the power of speech, which I wanted to say is the power to recognize a person's own life. A person who, the creature man who recognizes the fact that he's alive is on a, how can I put this? The Nazis, Yimach Shemam v'Zichram, and all Amalek throughout the generations, will attack this aspect of the Jewish people, that we are the world's conscience. There's a famous story, I may have told you here before, about, if you remember, there was a miracle. The Mir Yeshiva managed to get to Shanghai across the Trans-Siberian Express, and they found a shul in Shanghai, which I think was exactly the right number of seats. A large shul from the Jewish community there. The yeshiva everybody had a seat. It was completely to the last man. And one of the yeshiva bochrim was walking through the streets in Shanghai one day, and amongst the hubbub of all these Chinese voices, he hears this voice which he recognizes, he can understand the language. And he walks a little bit further and he looks up and he sees there's an open window and there's a radio playing in this window. And he can hear this voice bellowing like an animal, screaming, "Come, let us live, let us rid ourselves of this people who will not let us live in peace." And behind this voice, there surges up this huge sound of Sieg Heil, Sieg Heil. And he's really shocked. So he runs back to the yeshiva And he tells the story over to Yerucham. No, sorry, Chatzkel Levenstein, the Mashgiach of the Mir. And Chatzkel said to him, this time he's telling the truth. The Jewish people will not let the world live in peace. The essence of a person, of a human being, is conscience. This is what distinguishes, I would suggest, this is the action of speech, the perception which is together with the knowledge of my own existence. The fact that I'm alive goes hand in hand with conscience. A person who recognizes his own life, if he's the next step to that is to understand that I have a responsibility to all life. That's called conscience. That's the attack of the Nazis. That's why the Nazis hate the Jewish people so much, because we are the agents of conscience in the world, because we are supposed to be the inheritors of Yaakov, of Jacob. We're supposed to be the Odom HaSholem. And they hate that. They hate that in us. So what's this all got to do with the dreidel? The dreidel, as we said, is a little wooden toy with 4 sides. Now, what are the letters we said that are carved on the letter? Nes, Gadol, Haya, Sham. Nun, Gimel, Shin, Hey. The 4 exiles. And that's why it's a 4 square top. Now, what do you do when you take that dreidel and you spin it? You mevatel, you nullify the directionality of the daled, of the square, right? And you focus it on a point in the middle. A yud, in essence, is a point which takes up no space. A yud has to be drawn with a certain degree of left and right and up and down, otherwise you couldn't see it at all. But in essence, a yud is something without any space or time, because it's olam haba. This world was created as a hey. Hey means what? The purposes of the way is to take the daled, all of the directionality, the pirud, the separation, the daled malchiuses, and spin them on their head so they become misbattled to that point in the center, which is the yud, which of course is Hashem. B'yomahu Hashem echad u'shmo echad. And that's why Yaakov sent Yehuda, as we said before, because he has the power within him to take all the daled of this world and to make it spin on its head, to bring it to Hashem Echad. There's a couple more things I just wanted to point out here. That if you take the gematria of Goshna, and as we say, Goshna is Gimel, Shin, Nun, Hey, which are again the 4 exiles. The gematria of Goshna is 358. 358 is also the gematria of Mashiach, because the eventual outcome of the end of the Daled Malchus is the Goshna will be Mashiach. Mashiach, the gematria of Mashiach is also 358. So we have the dreidel, a little children's game played in the firelight, the menorah burning silently in the background, and without realizing it, we are symbolizing the whole of the history of the world. That the Jewish people represent those, the opposite of this idea of the Olam Depirud. We represent Hashem, we are the nation of Hashem, we're the ones who represent, who say, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. We are the agents of Echad in this world. Now just one thing before we close, and I see that I'm not going to have time to get to the second point tonight, but maybe we'll do that next week. Rav Buhlman pointed out, Tzal, that there's another minhag, another custom, which also revolves something spinning. On Purim, we have something called the Grega, right? The rattle. It's a minhag on Purim to spin it. What's the difference between the top, the dreidel, and the Grega? If you think about it, everything about the Purim story, there's nothing supernatural about it at all. There's no, in fact, it's said that the name of Hashem doesn't appear in the Megillah at all. There's no Yud Kei Vav Kei. Everything is seeming. The hand of Hashem is hidden. It's Hester. The word Esther itself means hiddenness. In other words, that was the Jewish people reaching up to Hashem from below here. We don't see any opened miracles. We have to reach up. There's what's called his orarusa delatata, an awakening from below. Hanukkah was all about a miracle which was quite plain for all to see. So that, so to speak, is Hashem reaching down to us. And similarly, the minhag of Hanukkah, the hand comes from above to spin the top. And in Purim, the hand comes from above to spin the dreidel. The hand comes from above, that's Hashem reaching down to us. And in Purim, it's the other way around, that we, so to speak, reach up to Hashem. Okay, B'ezrat Hashem, we should very soon see the dreidel spinning to the point where all of the four malchus are in this battle, and the Goshna, those four exiles, will be in this battle. In the final his battles, when Goshna will turn into Mashiach, Gematria 358. Okay.
I don't understand one point.
Sure.
What does it mean that you say that Hester is in the lower world?
No, as the story of Purim is us reaching up to Hashem. There's nothing miraculous about the Purim story, ostensibly. Everything is it's just seeming happenstance, seeming coincidence. You have to put all the pieces together in order to assemble it to make it make sense. There's nothing supernatural. So that, so to speak, is where we reach up to Hashem. When we reach out of the Hester and we say, no, this is Hashem at work. Even though it looks like coincidence. Just so happens that the king happened to be reading the story about the attack, and it just so happened that there's so many just so happens in Purim that a person might go through and say, well, okay, it was just coincidental. The whole point of Purim is that we revealed the hidden hand. The word why is it called Megillat Esther? Is legalot et nistar, to reveal the hidden. The whole point of idea of Purim is revealing that which is hidden. That's, so to speak, us reaching up to Hashem. In Hanukkah, it was a nes gadol Hashem, right? It was an open miracle of the war. Okay, you can debate, maybe that wasn't such an open miracle, but for sure the flask of oil, this was something where clearly Hashem was reaching down to us. So that's the symbolism of the hand reaching down for Hanukkah and the hand reaching up for Purim. That's what you were asking about?
Yeah, thank you, Rob.
I think it's like the dreidel already, the
Grega, they call it in Yiddish.
The
Grega or Grogger or Graga. It means a rattle.
The rattle already has a shape fadalet.
Okay.
Right? Because it's like this.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. Yeah. Okay, very nice. Yep.
And the dreidel is like a yud, somehow.
Well, the dreidel is clearly the Daled Malchus is written on the four sides.
The corners. But
four
when
corners.
It spins,
But when it spins, that's what that point I wanted to make, that the four corners vanish. Now you have a circle. Right. And a circle is really just basically a dot expanded. Okay. Shkoyach.